Okay, so welcome everyone to the BEwell Hub experience. Today's talk is going to be entitled Unlocking Holistic Health, Exploring Body and Emotion Code with Permelia Parham. Okay, my name is Gary Marcus Judge. I'm going to be the host, and Permelia is going to be my co-host. And this is a BEwell Zoom meeting, not a webinar, because as webinars are just one-sided. The idea of these get-togethers is to be interactive and try to share our experience and our knowledge to help each other move forward. So let me tell you a little bit about Permelia. Permelia Parham is a teacher and practitioner of emotional and energy healing. During the 20 years of studying and through her own personal practices, Permelia realized many people were not aware that their emotions affected them physically. Through her company, Vibrational Healing, as a certified body code and emotion code practitioner, she offers sessions to release unprocessed negative emotions for better health and success in life, providing individual consultations and teaches strategies on how to expand self-awareness and be empowered to make positive life changes. So welcome, Permelia. Permelia, welcome, Steve Busher as well. And Permelia, maybe you'd like to take it from there.
Well, thank you so much, Gary. I'm just delighted to be here today and looking forward to just talking about holistic health. That is one of my favorite things. I love to talk about different ways that we can, that we can be well and that we can stay well from a holistic point of view. And not everybody understands what a holistic point of view is. So I'd just like to explain that. So it's asking those questions. It's diving into your own intuition and finding out, really if I'm on this health journey, because let's face it, we're all on a health journey, and something's not quite feeling quite right. That's your intuition telling you have to be curious and you have to ask some questions. And if you are being guided, let's say, by sort of our mainstream medicine to take to take a pharmaceutical because of a symptom that you are showing, look into that. Make sure that the side effects of that pharmaceutical are not worse than what you're trying to fix, because that is happens so often. And there's so much information out there now. I tell the story about my mother who died when she was 61 because she had been on a medication for over 20 years and never once did her doctor tell her a side effect could be kidney failure. So I'm like, I don't want that happening to other people. But that was 37 years ago. I know exactly the how many years because I was pregnant with my son and he just turned 37. So so it was a tragedy that she died young, but also that, she didn't get to meet her grandchildren. So I often want to know, my goal and my vision and my purpose is to educate people. That's why I called the Healing Institute an institute. We want to educate people around how to be curious, ask those questions, find out what the side effects might be before you decide that you're gonna go that route.
So this kind of information regarding the side effects, is that something that we should go and look for ourselves, or is something that we can talk to medical professionals about? Would they tell us what side effects or not?
Well, my experience is that the professionals don't even know. Like if the doctor doesn't know. They just know that they've been trained. If this is a symptom, this is what you should prescribe. The person who would know would be your pharmacist. They're way more knowledgeable about what the pharmaceuticals are. Obviously, that's what they've been trained in. But you can do your own research as well. 37 years ago, we didn't have Google. So, my mother couldn't go look for Dr. Google and find out what these side effects might be because she'd been on this medication for such a long time.
Permelia, yeah, so what kind of, what should we, once we find this information, how do we sort of, look at it from a critical, so, because there's a lot of information out there.
There is.
There's
Yes.
there's a risk that we get tangled up in all that information, we get an overload, and maybe we even throw out the baby with the water. Like, we just say we're not taking that medicine at all because of all the information around that. So how are we able to understand?
Well, that's when I come back to your intuition. So, our bodies are really smart, way smarter than we've ever been educated. And our bodies can repair, and we can heal ourselves. Our bodies will heal themselves given the right conditions. So one of the things that I do with my body code, emotion code clients is I muscle test. So our muscles are very true to who we are. So there's the sway test, you say your name and it's true to who you are. Your body will sway forward or back. And then if you say a name that's not you, then your body will sway differently. So that is a way to muscle test to decide whether.
Maybe we could even try that with a new guest coming into the room.
Oh, right.
We don't know, since this person hasn't heard what you just said. I wonder whether we could actually try it and see if it works. What do you think? Should we try that? Shall we try that? Shall we try that? I'll let the person into the room now.
Okay.
Okay. So this person is coming into this room. Priyanka. So I don't know, she's just connecting now where. Yeah, so you were saying to use your intuition when you take on.
Yeah, so we need to tap into our intuition, and we all have it. We don't think about it that much, but unless we use it on a regular basis, like I do. But we do have intuition, and I liken it to a muscle. The more you use it, the more it'll work for you. So we definitely want to be able to be using our intuition. But as I was mentioning before, if you're not feeling really comfortable with your intuition yet, then ask your body. And that's what I was talking about, the muscle testing, because your body's not going to lie. Your body is true to who you are. So if you were going to ask about, I actually see this at the grocery stores quite often, where people are standing in front of some food. It's usually on a shelf, so could be, who knows what's in those boxes. But if they're swaying back, which is usually more commonly the no, you shouldn't eat that. I'm always like kind of smiling. I want to go up to them and say, don't buy that, but they're already figuring it out for themselves. So unless I would know them, I don't get involved. But yes, you can anything you eat, any lotions or creams, just about anything that you are interacting with your body in any way, ingesting or whatever, you can muscle test it and find out whether or not it is something that you should use. So the key to the muscle testing, though, is that you have to get your positive yes and your negative no. So you have to know what that is. With the body code, emotion code work that I do, I just use my fingers. So when my fingers stick together, that's my yes, and when they come apart easily, that's my no.
Wow. Well, I'm going through a period at the moment where I've got some sort of an allergy, and I'm trying to understand where this allergy came from. It's I had it many years ago. Went to a doctor, to a specialist, and they tested me for various substances, and they said I was allergic to lentils, and I can't remember other stuff. And then it just disappeared for about 20 years. It's disappeared, and it's now come back. And it's come back, and I don't know. And I'm trying to observe my body and observe my eating habits, my drinking habits, the weather, the temperature. I'm trying to understand, and this keeps coming back. It comes and then it goes, and sort of like blotchy on the face, really warm on the hands, under my feet, and then it suddenly just disappears. So talking about the body code, emotion code, I'm trying to also understand what's happening. The body is giving me signals, but I'm not able
Body's
to.
definitely telling you something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the best way is just sort of to keep track, especially if you think it's a food, just keep track of, but allergies are very strange. And now that I've done more, studying around the body code and the emotion code, I realize a lot of our, what we call allergies are actually triggered by emotions. So, maybe you've had a stressful week all of a sudden, or a couple of stressful weeks, or maybe that weekend you went on with the boys was maybe too much for you. I'm just teasing there, but using that as an example. So it just kind of depends. So the allergy that you're talking about is showing up in skin, right? It's showing up from a
Yes,
skin point
in
of view.
skin and in swelling and in heat and in itchiness as a rash, you feel
Yeah.
itchy and all of these things. And then it's in various places on my hands, under my feet. Like I'm trying to think, wow, under my feet, why is that? Where did that come from? But it's a strange. So I don't know whether that's to do with the food or whether it's to do with the water or whether it's to do with the temperature. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be a multitude of things. And the fact it's really hard to pinpoint what that is because it doesn't stay, right? So it goes away and then
Yeah.
it comes back. A lot of people who believe that they have allergies in the spring from if they have sneezing and um, a lot of phlegm and things that are going on, even chest congestion. Actually, I have discovered just from studying the body code, there is something called an ileocecal valve that is at the bottom of the digestive system. So really, the only two ways that our bodies can eliminate whether it's fluid or whatever, is really through that ileocecal valve and also through our sinuses. So if your ileocecal valve is imbalanced or misaligned, the only other place for it to go is through your nose. And so people often think that that is because they have allergies, and it usually shows up, in the spring when there's a lot of pollen and whatnot that's going on
Ah,
in the air.
because now you
I'd never
mentioned,
heard of it. I'd never heard of the ileocecal valve until
no,
I studied the body code. I was really quite fascinated.
but it's incredible how, like, I mean, even talking about sinus, I mean, it was something that before, let's say, before I actually started having a little bit more awareness of my body and awareness of my thoughts and the way I was moving, it was just a continuous cold that I had that you probably, it was always present here in the top of the head. But now, actually being aware of it and blowing my nose and actually trying to breathe or whatever, there's a bit more control. I think there's so much to be aware of the body symptoms.
Absolutely, Gary. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because awareness is really the key. So we really need to be aware of our bodies. I mean, we live in our bodies. So if anybody doesn't know the body, it should be us. And we just need to be aware. And we just need to, I believe, the new science that's coming out all the time is talking about how different things that we never considered were connected before. I've often wondered why all of a sudden, over the last few years, we have this, and I use the word tsunami to be dramatic, of Alzheimer's and dementia. Like it just seems to be every second person you meet knows somebody. Well, there's now the latest science, or it's been out for a while, there's a direct relation between our gut health and our brain health. Now, we've never ever been taught that, or I certainly wasn't taught that. Your gut was your gut, your brain was your brain. And of course, we were taught that the brain knew it all, which now we know is not true. It's actually the heart that knows it all, because the heart's a brain. And so really what's interesting, I find, is that then you can make that, you can make that correlation. Well, we have, certainly in North America, I believe my belief system is that Europeans eat maybe more whole food and better than we do here in North America, but we have really been conditioned to eat a lot of very fast foods, a lot of processed foods. And so no wonder all of a sudden now, if we've been eating junk for the last 30 to 40 years, that people that are now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are developing, their brain is not as healthy as it could be because of what they've been eating.
Yeah, I mean, talking about this, I mean, I was in the UK. I lived in the UK in the 90, when was it? When they had the mad cow disease. I don't know if you remember, there was the
Yes,
mad.
I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah, and at the time I was living in the UK, and I'm sure I ate meat, and it was probably beef. And so I didn't really think about it. Of course, it was the mad cow disease and all that kind of thing. So when I went to donate blood here in Italy, I had to fill in a form, and in that form, you have to say where you live in a certain period of your life. And so when I wrote down I was in the UK, they said that I couldn't donate blood because of the mad cow. So just imagine what was going on, what was going inside my body, and that was talking about 30 years ago. It's still affecting me now because they won't let me
Yes.
donate blood.
And again, I come back to your word of awareness. We need to be aware of what we're ingesting and what's in our environment. Um, I am very fortunate to live on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada, and we have a lot of organic farms. And I had decided probably about 10 years ago that if I couldn't get something fresh, like strawberries, for example, I'll give you that as an example. So I love strawberries. But I can't get them here because they don't grow in the winter here. They only grow here in the spring and early summer. I decided that's it. I'm not going to eat strawberries that are from another country, because in Canada we no there's I don't believe there's any place unless you were growing them in a hothouse, that you could actually get strawberries. So when I see strawberries from another country, not to name the country, but I know that they've been shipped. I know that the taste is not going to be as good as the local strawberries. So I've just decided that's it. I made a choice. I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to buy them. And I think
Do
that's,
you eat another fruit, or is it just you don't eat fruits in that case?
well, if it's not a local fruit, like the strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, those kinds of things that are locally grown here, and I know that they taste really good. So I know that the farms that they're coming from, are specifically saying that they're organic farms. They have to be given the certification. They can't just go around and say that they're organic if they're not been certified. So yeah,
Yeah.
I just
I was
Stephen.
going to say I'd like to jump in because I had a couple things that happened to me in the past. One was I had a sensitivity to gluten, and they tested me for celiac. They tested and they just defined. They said I had a gluten intolerance. They also diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, and I was really upset with that diagnosis because in the time that I was diagnosed with it, they had just come out with this collection of fatigue, this collection of symptoms, and they gave it a name, and they said, okay, this is fibromyalgia. And I thought, well, that's a bullshit thing to do, excuse the expression, to just to it's like to say, okay, you have sneezing or you have a cough. I was very unhappy. I wanted to know what the root cause was behind it. And 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 with all of this, it brought me into this place of of really questioning the way that we do medicine. And this is something I want to read you a statement to you that just shocks me. And this one is lifestyle diseases. This is something that I just came up with because I did some research on it. Lifestyle diseases are responsible for approximately 38.9 million deaths annually. I'm going to say that again. Lifestyle diseases, this is lifestyle choices, are responsible for approximately 38.9 million deaths annually. They underscore a crucial public health challenge. these are non-communicable diseases, including heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and various cancers. And this doesn't even touch on the microbiome, right? So this is linked to poor diet, physical inactivity, smoking, drinking, all of these lifestyle type of choices. And, even organic, this is something that's true here in the States. I don't know if it's true in Canada. Any produce that's in the grocery store, right? And we get such positive benefits from, colorful vegetables that have, that's part of the way that our body's designed, is to take in the proteins and the amino acids from these different plants and to utilize those. But every plant that is taken into the grocery store is sprayed with an insecticide that's part of the grocery process. Even the organics, while the organics use a supposedly organic pesticide, it's still a pesticide. And my thought is, and this is where it comes back to, when I cured my gluten intolerance and I cured my fibromyalgia, I cured it with going on an antifungal and antibiotic for a long period of time, 9 months, which is almost impossible to get a doctor to do that. And then I finished it off with diatomaceous earth. So I know that by curing myself with that, the mechanism was probably either a bacteria or a fungal related bug was what was causing my illness. And so the whole point of this is, even if we're eating the vegetables, we don't know what the impact of these insecticides are on our flora. It's not tested. Neither is the genetically modified foods. They don't test it against the little bacteria that's in our system that keep our brains healthy, keep our mood balanced. There's so much to who we are that's defined by this flora, the microbiome that's within us. I think we're only 10% human if we actually look at all of the cells that are within our body. If you include all the viruses, all of the everything else, our physical cells are only about 10% of what's inside of us. So that's my question is we don't know so much and we're just figuring it out.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
So, it's interesting that I remember when I was a kid, one of my high school friends had ulcers, and this was devastating to him, right? It's like he couldn't eat certain foods. He would always taking in, at milk of magnesia to try to calm down his stomach acids. And it turned out it was just a bacteria, 2 or 4 weeks of antibiotics, and it was cured, right? And he put up with this for about 6 years while we're going through high school and 2 years into college. So how much do we not know about all that we're experiencing? And that's my thought is we have much to learn. And
We
functional
do.
medicine is the answer.
It totally is. Functional medicine is totally the answer, because functional medicine gets to the root cause. So, what we were saying about getting sort of the umbrella diagnosis of fibromyalgia, that has happened with so many things. Autoimmune disease. How many people do you know say that they have an autoimmune disease? Well, how do you pinpoint what that is specifically? And again, it's our mainstream medical that doesn't know what is causing the autoimmune, so they just label it. And so, the fancy words over the last maybe 10 years are autoimmune disease and fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. Well, what is causing that? What is causing those symptoms? You want to find that out. And, unfortunately, our doctors don't know. They're not trained. They're not taught. So we have to do our own research. We have to find out what is going on, because our health is so important. I'm glad you raised that about Stephen, about the, how we live our lives, because I just read recently Dr. Mark Hyman. I think it's fairly well known. He's got, I think his latest book out is Forever Young, or Young Forever. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's really good. And I've been reading it, and there's a huge percentage, and I don't know the exact number, so I won't say it, but a very large percentage of people who are pre-diabetic, which means they're going to get diabetes, or are diabetic. And we don't need to be that way. If we actually were looking at our the intake of what we're doing, and specifically around exercise and eating healthy and movement, you know, we wouldn't even get to be diabetic or pre-diabetic. But we have a very, this term was mentioned to me a while ago, and I thought it's very, very, it says it all. We have grown up in a microwave society. We want it fast, we want it quick, we don't want any hustle, we don't want to have to really, you know, make any effort to, whether that's food or whether, you know, that's going to the gym or you know, our health, you know, our health is our wealth. So really we have to be really looking at what is going on with us.
You know what I would say now, perhaps that we've surpassed the microwave. We're now into the delivery. The young people don't want to cook at all. They don't even look at the microwave now. They just phone up or they send a message and they get things delivered to the door. I don't know in Canada or in America, but in Italy, now you can get anything delivered to your house 24 hours a day. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can wake up and you suddenly want pancakes or you want ice cream, and you can have that delivered to your door at 2 in the morning, 5 in the morning. So we've gone past the microwave.
I agree. Yes, I just recently experienced that, and I didn't realize how my children are all in their 30s, and so that seems to be, I think they're considered the millennials, and so that seems to be the generation who, some of them, not all of them, but you know, who just order. They just order in.
Yeah.
So you don't know, I mean, unless you really knew what you were getting from that particular restaurant.
You don't know. It could be someone's garage, someone's backyard. They're cooking. You don't know. I try to tell myself, where is that coming from at 3 o'clock in the morning? You know, you got these pancakes arriving at your door, but who's awake? Anyway, let's go on to a question. Let's talk about emotion code. And we're talking a lot about body. Tell us a little bit about what is emotion code and how do we assess it? How do we access it?
Well, thank you for that question. Yes. So the emotion code and the body code, these are two protocols that were designed by Dr. Bradley Nelson. So they are first of all, the first level is the emotion code, which is, I'm certified by Dr. Bradley Nelson in both emotion code and body code. The emotion code is kind of like you need to get certified in that first before you could go into the body code. And it's looking at this chart of 60 trapped emotions that Dr. Bradley Nelson put together. And the chart is actually divided into column A and column B. There's no difference between column A and column B, but of the 6 rows, those are divided into which emotions may in fact impact your organs if you don't release them. So the whole concept of the emotion code is that we have these balls of negative energy. And how Dr. Brad came up with this idea, he was a chiropractor for over 20 years. And he would see his patients, he'd adjust them, they'd go away, and they kept coming back. Now, this man is just an amazing, amazing man. And he's very connected to his source energy. You know, he did a lot of meditating and praying over what was going on here. And he said to his wife one day, you know, there's something more than physical happening here. Why do they keep coming back? And so he, as I said, he did a lot of delving into why that would happen. And what came up for him was it was emotions also that weren't being released. So he calls them trapped emotions. He relates them to like balls of negative energy that are stuck in our subconscious. Now, again, this is not something we're taught, but I use the analogy of an iceberg. So what is in our conscious brain is what's above the water, and what's in our subconscious is what's below the water. And as we know, it's 90 to 95% of what's below the water. So that is what's in our again, our subconscious is like our muscles. It's very true to who we are. So it doesn't lie. It's not going to tell us something that's not true. So when we have these balls of negative energy stuck in the subconscious, sometimes I refer to it as running the show and we don't know it. We need to release them because they can not only be in the subconscious, they can then be in the body. And that's when dis-ease is created. So
so these trapped emotions, what are the symptoms?
they could be anything. They could be having, you may be having, your glands might be swollen. You could be having, it could show up in things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. There's a correlation now between chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and childhood trauma. So there's now that, they've done studies and discovered that a lot of people that end up with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue have had trauma in their childhood.
So this is the question, just to understand, because so to get to that trapped emotion, is that us going back and actually looking at the trauma that we think we suffered or we went through when we were in a young age? Is that how they would do that?
No, and I'm glad you asked that question, because it's not the protocol and the process that Dr. Bradley Nelson has created. You don't have to relive it. So I connect, this is how I connect with my clients, either over Zoom or in person or even over the phone, or oftentimes I've clients don't have time to even have a meeting like this. So they just say, work on me when you have time. So as long as I connect to their subconscious with their permission, obviously. So it's connecting to their subconscious by muscle tests to make sure that we're connected. And then I look at the chart of trapped emotions to see which trapped emotions need to be released. And so they don't need to know why. As a matter of fact, Dr. Brad he gives his book away to anybody in the military who's had PTSD, who has PTSD, because it works so well on PTSD. You don't have to relive the trauma. So again, the process is looking at the emotions trapped in the subconscious, determining which emotions need to be released, and then releasing them.
And you said there were how many? 60 emotions?
Yeah, there's 60 that he came up with, the chart of 60 trapped emotions that we use in the process. And of course, the body code is really so cool because it's looking at everything that's in the body. So it could be the glands, it could be the organs. So depending on what the client wants to work with. So I talk to them about, okay, I ask them to articulate, what is it that you want to work on today? Is it physical, emotional, mental, spiritual? What is your issue that you want to work on today? So let's say they want to work on, they've got a pain in their hip. Okay, so we're going to work on that. So usually, well, not usually, always, their subconscious is going to take us into probably the muscles, also it could take us into the skeleton part of the skeleton system. There could be a disconnection between one part of the body and another part of the body. We find out what percentage is that disconnection, and then we release the trapped emotions and try to get the connection up to 100%, because that's what we want to happen. So yeah, it could be, sometimes it's the nervous system. And so it's actually the amygdala, the fight, flight, or freeze hormone or gland that creates the hormones that put us in distress.
Give us an example of a client, obviously not naming any names for disclosure, someone who came to you with a physical pain, and then you went through the emotion. Tell us something.
Oh, okay, yes, I have a great one. So this gentleman actually is a body code and emotion code practitioner himself, but oftentimes we find we hire other people to work on us because, sometimes working on yourself doesn't get the best results. So he had this pain in his neck his neck and his back of his neck and the top of his shoulders on his back. And he said, I've done some releasing, but it's still there. And it's interfering with my sleep now. I'm not sleeping well because I've got this discomfort and this pain. So we did 3 sessions. And during those sessions, what came up was that one of the things I always ask after we release or find the trapped emotion, I always ask, what age were you when this trapped emotion showed up? Or do we need to ask, is there an age? So oftentimes people will remember the incident, or if it was an accident or something. And again, as I said before, they don't have to remember it, but it kind of makes it interesting for them to know, oh, that's when that happened. So I had asked that question. We release things like, I've just got the chart in front of me and I'm trying to remember, despair, anxiety, resentment, blaming, dread, some of these very strong negative trapped emotions. I mean, obviously all the emotions on the chart are somewhat negative. So when I asked what age he was, he's in his 70s when I was doing this, it was when he was in his 40s. And he remembered exactly. He got fired from a job. And it was very overwhelming for him because he was one of the, he and his wife were the bread earners. They had children. And it was very, very traumatic for him to actually lose this job.
So he lost his job and then that chronic pain started. Is that right?
Many years later. So that's how our bodies will hang on to those memories and those emotions. So he didn't have chronic pain for 30 years. It just all of a sudden started to show up.
And how did you manage to actually understand it was connected to him losing his job?
Because when we were releasing the trapped emotions, so I said, okay, well, do we need to know more? That's my question. Do we need to know more? And if I get a yes on my muscle testing, if I get a yes, we need to know more, then what I do is I say, okay, well, what age were you? And I just go back by decade. So he's in his 70s. So I go, was it in your 70s? No, 60s, 50s. Oh, it was your 40s, 45 to 50. And then you just pinpoint the age. So I think it was 47. And so I said, so I think, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was despair and anxiety. Those were the trapped emotions that were causing, that were coming up at that age. And I said, and I had no clue because I didn't know the incident until he shared it with me that he had lost his job. And then we released it. We released those trapped emotions and the pain and discomfort was gone.
Wow. So if someone came to you with like a chronic headache, they have a migraine headache, and said to you, okay, I've got this splitting headache, a migraine, that it just keeps coming. Can you help me to, I don't know, overcome this pain? Where would you start?
So I would ask them how many years they have been suffering. Is it constant? Does it come? I'd just get some general questions. Do they have it all the time? Does it come at certain times? Is it weekly when it arrives? Does it stay for days or is it over in a few hours? Just to get a feel for what the client is suffering, like what is happening. Right. And then I would just go into just looking at the chart and releasing the emotions and just saying, okay, well, let's see, we've got an emotion here, just to give you an example of helplessness. So let's release it. So we release the trapped emotion. And what's interesting about releasing the trapped emotion, and this again is all part of Dr. Brad's protocol, is we have an electromagnetic field, which we usually call our aura, but it's actually the electromagnetic field that every person has been measured. So, it's scientifically, we do have this. And so to release the trapped emotion, we just have a little magnet. I have a little magnet bracelet. And because I'm working with the clients on their proxy, I do the work. So I just run this magnet over my governing meridian, which then releases the trapped emotion. The magnetic quality of the magnet, which can be any magnet, connecting to the electromagnetic field releases, it's stronger than the trapped emotion, so it releases the trapped emotion.
So the trapped emotions always show up in some sort of pain in the body, is that right?
They may show up in not just pain, but also they may show up because you're feeling mentally, you're feeling distressed, emotionally, you're, you know, just feeling something's not right, or there could be something in your life that's triggering your emotions on a regular basis. So we find out, well, what is the root cause? What happened for these emotions now to be triggering you? And then we release them.
I remember this story. I think maybe Stephen's heard this as well. Years ago, but I've been running my business for 25 years, just to share this with you. And there was a lot of pressure just being a sole entrepreneur, and I felt like the pressure was on me to bring in the work, manage the work, hire the people, fire the people. At a certain point, it was like complete overwhelm. And there were days I'd have days when I'd come into the office and actually feel nausea and sickness and actually even vomit. And I'd leave home. I remember take the kids to work. I'd get take these kids to school. I'd get dressed. I'd come into the office sweating and wet as it's 8:30 in the morning. And I couldn't understand why. I hadn't been drinking or taking drugs, and it was just like coming in on a Monday morning or whatever it was. And I'd have to apologize to everyone in the school, the office, and say, I can't do this. I'm going back. And I'd go home and spend the day in a dark room in the bedroom until the kids and my wife came home from work and from school and asked me, what's happened? You know, why are you in bed? And I've got this splitting headache and it won't go away. And I didn't have an answer to that. So I can, just listen to you talking here, but maybe there were some trapped emotions that I didn't know about and no one ever mentioned it.
Well, you were probably, really, because you were overwhelmed with this. Overwhelm is actually one of the trapped emotions that can affect our glands. So we have glands, of course, throughout our whole body. That could have been affecting the glands in your brain, in your head, that was creating that bad headache. You could have been feeling helpless and hopeless, like, oh my gosh, I'm now this entrepreneur and I'm now running this business and it's all on me. So, having not done a session with you, I don't know what that was, but very, very, I feel very confident that yes, there was definitely some emotions that were trapped, that were going on.
Because I remember at the time I was quite scared, and I thought it could have been some sort of like a brain tumor or something. I didn't know, because no one's telling you anything as usual. You go to your general practitioner, your doctor, and I'm telling you, I've got this splitting headache, and I vomit, and it happens to me like once a month or once every 2 months, and it's like really bad. And he actually sent me to have a scan. I had a scan on my head. They put me in a machine, like a tube, put me through. And I was really worried. I thought they might find something, and God knows what that could be. Came out, they didn't find anything. He said, no, we didn't find anything. I said, yeah, but what's the explanation to this? And he didn't have an explanation. He just said, maybe it's just stress. And he said, just don't work less. I said, okay, all right. But
that's not going to happen when you're an entrepreneur.
And you've got 3 kids. You've got 3 kids, and so even coming home in the evening wasn't like, now I can rest. No, you came home in the evening and you got another job. And so all of that put together, like Monday morning was, it's like
so how long did that go on? Like when did you get some relief?
Actually, when I changed my diet. When I changed my diet and became more aware of what I was putting in my body, before I would just eat whatever came my way. It had to be consumed. Drinking was, I would, I would sit down with a bottle of wine, and maybe 3/4 of that bottle of wine would be finished in a dinner one evening, and without thinking of anything about it. It was just normal. Drinking anything and eating, like, those espresso coffees were not enough. I had to put like this liquor, which was like in the coffee, which made it really strong as well. And I'd have like 3 or 4 of those in the day. But there was just like no regard to health. It was just, come on, this.
And so what your body was probably doing was it could have been getting too much sugar of different types, too much
Caffeine.
Yeah, exactly. So it was telling you by giving you that headache and the nausea that something was not right. And this is what happens is we don't listen to our bodies. We go, oh, we've got this issue. We're going to go to the doctor and the doctor's going to fix us. And the doctor just doesn't find out what the root cause is either. They just give you something that you can use. It's a prescription that is probably going to have worse side effects. Stephen, did you have a comment that you wanted to make earlier?
It's just, and it's interesting because when noticing the foods that, like, those are two of the biggest migraine triggers, or caffeine and red wine.
Yes,
the
yeah.
the tannins in red wine, and I'm not sure what it is, that because part of it's like physical, but with hypnotherapy, this is something that we noticed with pain as well. So it's when your subconscious focuses on something, and it can be pain, then that will become more aware in your consciousness. And what's strange is that when the body is aware of it, it can actually, your muscles can tense because it's a protective measure, but the tension, that seizing of the muscles can actually cause the pain. So it's like in migraines can kind of be the same way. It's like if you minimize the stimulus, that's why going into a dark room is helpful, because you're minimizing all the stimulus and allowing your brain to just remove some of those. But what we found in hypnotherapy is if you move that focus to a place where you don't have the pain, right? Because the thing is we're thinking of the pain, and we're trying to just say, well, I wish this would go away. But what's more helpful is you move that focus to a place where there's no pain. And it's similar to release that emotion. Once you have that space of pain, then it's interesting because your brain can actually latch onto that, and that will expand within your experience. And it's so strange. I've seen this within practice sessions. I had a practice session with somebody. Sometimes when you say something, people will resist it, right? So it's like, I had a client that this was an instructor I was observing, and the hypnotherapy practitioner made a comment, which was, bringing in something that was a problem into a space of something that you love, right? Because you're in this place of empowerment, and this person resisted that. They didn't. The problem was a person, and they didn't want to bring this person into their space, and so it caused them tension in their shoulder. And she grabbed her shoulder and says, "Oh, I've got this pain now. I didn't want to do this." And the hypnotherapy practitioner, because they were in this heightened state of awareness, they adopted the pain. And so anytime somebody reached on their shoulder, now that pain became aware for them. And so we actually had to do a hypnotherapy session, because the thing is you can create the pain just as easily as you can release the pain. But we're more practice on creating the pain, because of that we're aware of it. We're less aware of when we release the pain, because if you start engaging in a practice of something that you truly love, right? Even if you have a migraine, if you get into a peaceful place on the mountains, or someplace where you hear the nature, and it's like all of the stresses, all of the problems, are away. You don't have the bright lights or the things that are causing you distraction. Sometimes that's enough to say, oh, you know what, I feel better. Or you actually forget about the fact that you had a migraine, and it's like, oh, I'm glad I didn't have it. So it's an interesting thing that can happen. And I just wanted to share that, because I see that there's a similarity between hypnotherapy and the way that we practice this, and with the emotion code. And because once you believe that it's released, then you can focus on not having it, and that
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
beneficial.
Or, great. Thank you for that analogy. That was really good. Yeah, most definitely. And awareness again is the key. We have to, we need to just be cognizant and be aware of what's going on in our bodies. And when we get that pain or when we get that anxiety, what is, it's telling us something, not to run away from it. We need to look at what it is. Why is it being caused? Why is that happening?
Yeah, I think it's having the knowledge as well. I mean, at the time, I'm talking about what, 15 years ago, maybe, when this was just such a it was there was nothing to actually explain what was happening. No one could put their finger on it, so they sent me for a scan. Come
Yeah.
back with a scan. There's nothing wrong with you. Oh, so what do? Well, just put up with it, work less, and it'll go away. Okay. So listen, another question. If someone wants to learn about body emotion, body code and emotion code, where is there a course? Is there something that we can do to learn more about this?
Yes, definitely. So Dr. Bradley Nelson's company is called Discover Healing. I think it's discoverhealing.com. So he is the one who does the certification. It's his protocol. He designed it. He created it. And so it's an online course. I just did the emotion code, as I mentioned, was the first level. I just did that online, and I needed to have 30 case studies. So I already had a practice, my vibrational healing practice. I already had that up and running. I was doing different other kinds of energy healing. So I just asked my clients, would you be part of this case study, complimentary session so that I can get certified? And everybody was very happy to accommodate me. So I needed 30 case studies to get my emotion code certification. And now you'll find this interesting. So it was 26 people and 4 animals, because it works on animals. A lot of our animals are rescued. A lot of our pets we've got from the rescue, and they have trauma. And so I've worked with a number of different animals, cats and dogs, for the most part, and release their trauma, and release their trapped emotions, which release their trauma. And so, so that was great. And then for the body code, that was another online course, as well as submitting these case studies. You also have to take the test. It's a multiple choice test, but you have to get 95% and more higher to be certified. And then the body code was another online course, which was very in depth. As a matter of fact, I was like creating notes as I went, and a binder. I have binders now of everything. And I needed to have 20 case studies to submit for my certification, but I had to have 5 sessions with each person. So an introductory session, 3 regular sessions, and then a closing section. So
that's a lot of work you put in there. So
it was a lot. It was.
that's a lot of work. Congratulations for that. Steve,
Thank you.
Steve got his hand up. I just wanted to ask you a last question. Is what kind of, who is your ideal client? What could you give us some sort of a snapshot of who could be a client for you? Who could you help?
Well, I can help just about anybody. I've also worked with children, and I'll give you an example of the mother's given me permission not to say names, but this young boy, I knew her. She's a neighbor, and so I knew her story was that her son almost died at birth, and so we were talking, and she was saying how he was in grade 5, and so he was like 10. Age 10. And so she said he was really acting out at school. And so I said, oh, well, just with my background, perhaps he's got some trapped emotions from birth, because he wouldn't know how to emotionally process those. They happened at birth. So sure enough, she brought him to me. We did this in person because they're neighbors. And I showed him my little my image of the iceberg and explained to him, and he's a very bright little boy. And then about 2 days later, she went to pick him up from school. And first of all, the principal met her and said, "What have you done with him? He's not acting out anymore. He's like a different child." And then, so she didn't really say what had happened, but she was kind of feeling, well, good, this is good. And then she went to pick him up at his classroom, and his teacher said he always had a hard time sitting down in the afternoon when it was reading time. And so apparently since the sessions we did with him, he went to the library, got his own chapter book, sat down and read it. Now, that wasn't part of any of the discussion when we did the session, but it was a wonderful outcome that he was feeling that he was able to, that he was calm enough that he could sit down and read when he was supposed to read.
Wow. Well, Stephen, tell us, you got your hand raised, Stephen.
Oh, so well, my question was, because Milton Erickson created, he brought hypnotherapy into the space of, psychoanalysis. Dr. Nelson brought in this idea of emotion code. Do you have any, any new ideas or anything that has been unique to yourself that you found in this journey of study and this journey of life that, could be something unique to you? Is there something that you found that's like a basic truth or a basic idea that you found to be interesting, or something that you're exploring at the moment?
Well, I've always been curious. I think that's just really one of the main things we used to do. Now I say, what you got in trouble for as a child is probably your gifts. So I was always getting into trouble for being too sensitive and asking too many questions. And my background before learning the body code and the emotion code was I did 8 years of study with an energy teacher and learned all about chakra balancing, learned about my electromagnetic field, learned about realigning belief systems, learned about healing past lifetime energy. So I use it all. So as much as I love the emotion code and the body code, and that is kind of my mainstay, once I'm working with a client, if I think that realigning some belief systems would work for them, making sure that their chakras are balanced, energy balancing, and any past lifetime healing, we incorporate all of that. So, I believe we need to use everything that we have available because that's what's gonna heal us. So
I appreciate that. Is there any ideas that might be unique to you?
I'm just open. I'm always open to whatever's coming along. I'm very curious, as I said. I love learning. I'm probably learn until I say my last breath. If I learn something new, I'll be happy. So just to be aware and to be open, just to be open for the possibility, how things could be different, especially if you are in a situation, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical, that you're not happy with right at the moment. Then let's see how we can move that.
I think looking at the body pain or the discomfort that one has in the body, and then not just and look at what are the emotions behind that, and the blockages maybe. Yeah, I think it's a very important things I didn't know about. So Permelia, thank you very much. I should have known about this 15 years ago, but I didn't. So I went through all sorts of traumas and whatever, and who knows where that will take me. So listen, thank you very much for your time and your insights and your sharing. Thank you, Stephen, for being here and being part of this journey of mine, BEwell journey. Next week, we've got a person called Janice Taylor coming along. And I don't know if you know her, but she's the founder of AHA Healing. She's solving emotional and mental health crises. That's what we're going to be talking about next week. So
awesome.
If you're free, you want to come along, please do. It'd be great to have you here. The recording is going to be on the YouTube channel. So Gary Marcus Judge, you can go there. And Permelia, I will share a copy of this with you that you can share with your contacts and promote your business.
That would be fabulous. Thank you again for the opportunity, Gary. I'm Delighted to be here. Stephen, I know we've met somewhere along the way, so it was good to see you again.
Anyway, all the contacts, Stephen, Permelia's contacts are there, but you two can reach out if you want to catch up and continue this
Perfect.
conversation.
Perfect.
I'd
Okay,
be
so
happy to join you on a Friday as well.
Stephen, tell us again. Tell us that.
Oh, I said I'd be happy to join Permelia on the Friday. She was looking for a co-host for her Friday.
Oh, yes, definitely. I do my podcast Friday morning. What time zone are you in, Stephen?
Eastern. It would be noon for me at
Yeah.
9 Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, I'm going to reach out to you. Absolutely, that'll be fun.
Great. Permelia, thank you again. Stephen, have a great day. Thanks very much.